huge, massive, important weekend for Ole Miss football in the transfer portal visit window. These aren't players that are big names that everybody's going to think of, but these are the players that are going to be important for Ole Miss getting that ring at the end of the season. This is the Locked On Ole Miss podcast.
You are Locked On Ole Miss, your daily podcast on the Ole Miss Rebels, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hi, I'm Stephen Willis, a former staff member at Ole Miss and a 10-year veteran member of the national media at Yahoo Sports. Also did a little time in Nashville at WSMV. Today on the show, we will talk about the transfer portal visitors that are coming on campus, the importance of them, and maybe there's a player coming back to school that people weren't thinking about. As I mentioned, I'm Stephen Willis, and this is the Locked On Ole Miss podcast, your daily podcast on the Ole Miss Rebels, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We're free and available on all the podcast apps and YouTube. Thanks for making Locked On Ole Miss your first listen every day, and a special hello to the everydayers that make the show what it is. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code Locked On for $20 off your first purchase. Now, before we get started on the transfer portal visits, PFF released their grades for quarterbacks over the season. And again, everybody knows how I feel about PFF grades, but they do serve a little bit as an indicator. If everybody's graded by the same curve, it's going to have some sort of similarity. So you might be able to tell rankings of players more so than individual grades of specific plays, if that makes any sense whatsoever. And you have Jaxson Dart, who has come in at number 5 on the highest graded quarterbacks of the 2023 season at 91.3. That's higher than Michael Penix, higher than Drake May, higher than J.J. McCarthy, higher than Caleb Williams. Jaden Daniels, he was obviously the number 1. He was the best quarterback of the year. Bo Nix had a fantastic year. He's gone as well. It's going to come down to 3, 4, and 5 as players that are going to be competing for the top spot nationally in 2024. I wanted to post this before we forgot about it. This is a pretty major deal, and that kind of shows you the area and the waters that Jaxson Dart is swimming in. Now, let's turn our attention to the transfer portal. And Ole Miss has a pretty decent-sized visit weekend. They got 5 players coming in. Other players could show up during the weekend. They're consistently trying to get players on campus. And remember, these next 3 weeks of school, before the spring semester drop ad hits, okay? Because that's the important day, the last day to drop ad for classes. That's the last important day that Ole Miss fans need to realize. You need to take into account the players that are going to be coming in, because they're filling needs right now and they're filling roles, because a lot of the big name players that Ole Miss was trying to go after, they landed those players in December. So they're trying to get depth. They're trying to spot play. They're trying to avoid what happened last year against Georgia when Micah Pettis got injured and Jaden Williams got injured. And all of a sudden you have Victor Kern and you have to mix and match going against the defense of that caliber. They're trying to avoid stuff like that happening. And you'll see in the visits that are coming on this weekend what they're trying to do there. Now, if you look at Ole Miss this year, in the transfer portal, we talked about those big names. These are some of those big names. Diego Pounds, a left tackle, mountain of a man. He's kind of a Micah Pettis on the left-hand side. Walter Nolan, who is the best transfer portal prospect in the history of the transfer portal. Juice Wells in the conversation for the best receiver in the Southeastern Conference with Trey Harris. Tyler Barron, defensive end, great player. Princely Amonmielen, great player, pass rusher. He's potentially the best pass rusher in the portal. Key Lawrence, really good player at the safety position. Poop Hall, lining up at linebacker, the best linebacker in the portal for my money. DeCameron Richardson, the best cover corner in the SEC by PFF grades. I'm doing air quotes right now. Lewis Moore, he is the prediction for me to be a Daequan Anthony type player for 2023 from Indiana University, and Taz Nicholson as well. There's other players that's going to pop in. Players are visiting this week as we speak. And, you know, let's get started on those players. There's 5 names that we know about that On3 and 247 Sports have both committed and said that they were coming. So we're going to believe their stuff. I'm using the On3 graphics because honestly, I like the way they look. That isn't an intentional thing. So please do not feel slighted by anything like that, anybody out there. But if you look at players that are coming on campus, 2 players that are going to be the headline stealers this weekend potentially. Starting today, Gerald Mincey is beginning his visit. And also Kendrick Blackshire, we'll get to him in just a second. But Gerald Mincey is another tackle type prospect. He's played left tackle, he's played some right tackle, a little bit of a Swiss Army knife type player. And with Micah Pettis coming back and Jaden Williams and recruiting Diego Pounds, it's that Georgia game is weighing heavily on their heads. They don't want the offensive line to get into that situation to where Jaden Williams getting hurt early in the game completely kind of wrecked what they wanted to do on the defensive line. I mean, that happened. Georgia is way too talented for them to have that type of a benefit that messed up. Jeremy James had to move outside, bring in another guard. All of a sudden, 4 of the 5 linemen are not sitting in the places that they normally play in because one player got hurt. And I think Ole Miss is like looking like we need to prevent that from happening. We need depth to be built on the trenches or in the trenches and Jaden Williams and Micah Pettis. And then you have Diego Pounds. And if you could get somebody like Gerald Mincey, which I am told that the Ole Miss staff thinks very, very highly of this player. This isn't an also ran, just throw out a visit, anything. No, they really like what Mincey brings to the table. And people I've talked to said, do not be surprised if Mincey ends up being the one that starts when it's all said and done. So I'm curious about that. I do not know a lot about him as a player. I'm trying to research and do everything just like you are as well. Another player that's visiting is Kendrick Blackshire. He is from Alabama. This year, as many people knows, I do SEC After Dark on Wednesday nights at 9 Eastern with Jake Thomas from Tide Talk Live. He's into the Alabama program. He knows what's going on there. And Kendrick Blackshire, he likes him. He said he was a freak athletically. The problem that happened this year is a player that they expected to turn pro did not turn pro. And that meant that the senior year, the position that you've waited your turn to step up in that assembly line of players in the Alabama system, that all of a sudden wasn't the same option. So Blackshire got into the portal. He has a visit this weekend set up to Ole Miss. I think he has a visit that he might go to Texas. That's the type waters that this player is swimming in. He's a physical freak is what I was told. He can run absolutely crazy, and going sideline to sideline at the side and size that he has is kind of impressive. So pay attention to Kendrick Blackshire. He obviously played for Pete Golding for multiple years. He has a familiarity with what he does, his terminology and stuff like that. So this would be a big, big piece for Ole Miss. And now we talk about TJ Dudley. We talk about Pooh Paul. We talk about Suntaran Perkins. And how would Kendrick Blackshire fit into this rotation? Honestly, the names that I just mentioned, if we're just going to be real about this, okay, let's just be real for a second. The names that I just mentioned is about 2 letter grades above what it was last year. And it's nothing against the players, Kari Coleman and Jeremiah Jean-Baptiste and those guys. It's just because of the way it was set up and the franticness of Pete Golding getting in. He got into Ole Miss about this time last season, and he had to work a portal with like 3 weeks to go, and he had to mix and match and stuff like that. And he was able to do a fantastic job. I think defensive scoring efficiency, Ole Miss ended up in the top 30. And before the season, I was like, if Ole Miss can get inside the top 40, they would end up being a 10-win team, and they ended up winning 11. So that was prophetic. But Blackshire bringing to what the linebackers could be, the linebackers could be absolutely salty in year 2 under Pete Golding. With that defensive line, this front 7 has a chance to be the best front 7 in the entire country. Not even close. Line them up against everybody. You're going to be in every single game because the other team is going to struggle to score points. That is what we mean. This front seven will be able to do things that other front sevens in Ole Miss history has not been able to do since 1991, I think it was, 1992, whenever the Red Death defense was taking across the field. Even though the offense wasn't particularly good, the defense was really good. This front seven has a chance to match that. So Ole Miss is trying to do some things on the back end of the defense. And we will talk about that in just a second. A couple more visitors are coming on campus. We will talk about that. I do want to let you know that thanks again for making Locked On Ole Miss your first listen of the day. We're just getting started. More visitors are coming on campus this weekend, and they're on the back end of the defense and some offensive type players. We'll tell you about that as well. You know, you shouldn't have to worry about when you buy tickets to your next big event. Game Time is the fast and easy way to buy tickets to all the sports, music, comedy, and theater events near you. It's easy to find and buy tickets for every kind of event in your area, period. You have views from all the seats in the arena. Let's say there's a concert that's being played in Vaught-Hemingway Stadium and you don't know exactly what the view would be. They have that view in the stadium. They have all-in prices that show you your total up front. So you know you're getting a great deal before you check out, and you can buy tickets in 2 taps. Click, click, boom, you're there. Game Time has deals on tickets right up to the start of the event, and even after an hour it starts. It's the place to find last-minute seats. Find exclusive flash deals and sponsored deals on tickets for football, basketball, baseball, concert, comedy, theater, and more. And with zone deals, you can just pick the section and let Game Time pick the seats to even get a bigger savings. At Game Time, you have a guarantee that means you'll always get the best price. If you find tickets in the same section and row for less, Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDON, all one word, for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. Locked On has launched the first ever national sports streaming channel. This is really cool stuff, everybody. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with the local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows that cover every league. Go to Locked On Sports Today on YouTube and subscribe to the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel. All right, we named 2 visitors in the first segment that everybody needs to pay attention to. They're kind of big names or new names, and we just haven't mentioned them on the pod. That's the reason they went first. But there's 3 other visitors that will be on campus this weekend that Ole Miss will be paying attention to, honestly. First of all, you have Daequan Wright. He is a tight end out of Virginia Tech, caught 27 passes, something like that. He is a receiving tight end, and he also has like 3 years of eligibility. This is a really big deal. We saw that he was coming on a visit in mid-December, right? Everybody knows that. And then it kind of fell through and it went away, and Ole Miss moved on to Cole Rusk, who committed to Illinois. And Daequan Wright circled back around and is visiting Ole Miss. This is a big-time player for a school that has the reputation of being very tight end friendly. You have a bowl game, the first game that was not called with Quinshon Judkins in mind in 2 years. Caden Prieskorn ended up getting 10 catches and was a absolutely dominant piece on the field. Daequan Wright saw that. That was everybody disagree. It was the only game on TV at that time of day. Daequan likely watched that game, and he saw Caden Prieskorn making one-hand catch after one-hand catch. And there's eligibility, like I said, after this year for Wright potentially. So we'll see exactly how that goes. I know that Ole Miss is going to roll out the red carpet for that. New tight ends coach, allegedly, Kelvin Bolden. I guess people talked about that earlier. So we'll get to see what he does. But hey, him getting to do the recruiting and him doing all that stuff, that's Kelvin's wheelhouse as well. Now, another player that's going to visit is Brandon Turnage. If that name sounds familiar, He played cornerback at Tennessee this year, but he's from Lafayette County High School. And if everybody remembers way back when, I think it was 2019, maybe, it was a good bit ago. Everybody talked about Justin Woodall like camping out in his house and his cousin to get him to go to Alabama. Because remember, Brandon signed with Alabama in high school with Pete Golding, by the way. There's that through line again, who he ended up transferring to Tennessee, played some cornerback. He is a guy that'll be good, I think, personally, as a slot corner type player. I don't know if you line Brandon Turnage up on the outside, but you could see a role similar to John Saunders, who we're going to talk about in the next segment, by the way, as a slot type corner. And you'll have other players in the secondary as Ole Miss tries to get a little bit better. It's just a reminder that DeCameron Richardson, Taz Nicholson, Key Lawrence, Lewis Moore, those players have committed on the back end of the defense already, and they are not done. They are absolutely not done. And the last player that they're bringing in is Yam Banks. We talked about him pretty extensively on either yesterday or the day before show. Time gets lost a little bit when you talk about this every day. Yam Banks, as soon as he was admitted to visiting Ole Miss, okay, the Locked On Sunbelt host reached out to me and was like, this guy is really good at football. You guys would really love this. And Yam Banks is from Ridgeland, Mississippi. He has Mississippi ties, and there's crystal balls and everything going in all over that Yam Banks is going to commit. Now, I don't know if I believe that. It's still up to the kid to do that. But with Tamari McDonald going to Louisville and Yam Banks coming in, it kind of makes sense. It could be a coincidence, completely a coincidence, but it would make sense if something like that was going on. Good ball player. Again, there's 3 weekends left where visitors can be brought in and get them to go to your school. Lane Kiffin is going to be recruiting like a banshee over this time. This is the time of year when Lane Kiffin does his best work in the transfer portal. There's a lot of players that's popped in from like January 15th until February 1st that are major contributors on Ole Miss's team. There just are. And we'll see. And this is going to be a big, big type deal. Now, there's rumors about wide receivers. There's rumors about tight ends, as we just saw with Daequan Wright. What about players that are rumored to be coming back to school? You think about it that this would already be done, but there might be a little bit of surprise with Zachary Franklin potentially being back for next season. So still more to come on Locked On Ole Miss, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Zachary Franklin, John Saunders, those players, what's up? We talk about that in a little bit. I think it's potentially good news for Ole Miss, but we have to get past the NFL deadline, which is in about 4 days away. The NFL regular season is wrapping up, and there's still time to get in on the action with FanDuel. It's America's #1 sports book. Right now, new customers can get $150 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place a $5 bet. That's $150 in bonus bets, win or lose. The app is easy to use, and there's so many different ways to bet, like same game parlays. Or, if you're looking for specific bets, you can find them in the Explore tab, where there's kind of some creative bets in there. Or you can go to the Parlay Hub and make a parlay there. That's the best way to find what other people are doing in the parlay landscape as well. And they have many, many more things you can do. So visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to make your first bet a layup. FanDuel, an official partner of the NFL. Thanks for making Locked On Ole Miss your first listen of the day, and shout out to the everydayers. Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with the local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows that cover every league. For your second listen, go to Locked On Sports Today on YouTube and subscribe. the first ever national sports 24/7 stream channel. Be part of history. All right, so we talked about visitors that are going to be on campus this weekend in the first part of the show, but that isn't the only story that went around on Thursday, and nobody's really necessarily paying attention to what's going on here. But Ole Miss updated their roster, and that doesn't think much, okay? That doesn't necessarily mean that much. But Ole Miss updating the roster and including players that we weren't sure about, it is again another sign. Now let me show you what's going on, what I mean. If you check out the number 5s, you see that TJ Dudley has already been moved to number 2. They've completely updated it. And they list Fakari Franklin as a redshirt senior. He's saying he went to Ole Miss and he did not let her. He got a red shirt, which that tells me he will be coming back. Now, if you look at Ole Miss's wide receiver room next year, absolutely nuts. And now you are potentially adding the NCAA active leader in touchdown passes to that room. When you already have Juice Wells, you already have Deion Smith, you already have Trey Harris, you already have Jordan Watkins, you already have all of these weapons that you can just spread out and use them as you see fit. You're going to add a potential Zakari Franklin to the mix as well. The all-time or the current active touchdown leader in college football, Zakari Franklin, who against Auburn, whenever he kind of felt all right, you saw a little bit of the smoothness of that movement. But what happened is basically before last season, okay? Zakari Franklin ended up having to have surgery in like July. Everybody remembers that. And there was delay and it took a little bit longer than we thought. The recovery didn't last as well. And it got to the point later in the season that Zakari Franklin just decided it's like, oh, I need to redshirt. I need to not play anymore or my college career is over and I can't go to the NFL off of this note. I need to go to the NFL on a higher note. So he redshirted. Sit out against Georgia, sit out against Louisiana Monroe, sit out against Mississippi State, sit out of the Peach Bowl. And you have a situation where everybody's going to see this like, why would he do that? Well, he just didn't want his career to end. And as long as it is okay by Lane Kiffin, which it looks like it is, he's listed as a redshirt and he is on the roster. I think everybody needs to get by that and get ready for him to go through spring and go through fall and be completely full ready to go by the beginning of the season, which he has a chance to be pretty special at. Now, another player on this list is John Saunders. John Saunders listed as a senior, 1 letter. That means it's already done. They've already updated what's going on. John Saunders has not officially announced. The question for him is not transfer portal, it's NFL draft. And if he wants to come back, I've messaged out to people that said that something might be coming soon, which it makes sense. I mean, school's about to start. So good players, both number 5s leaning towards coming back to school and continuing their football career, making this defense and offense even a little bit better. I can't wait to see what this wide receiver unit looks like in 2024. When you have a quarterback, as we saw in the beginning of the show, that graded out in the top 5 in the country, and then you're going to have this wide receiver unit to where you get a healthy Zakari Franklin, you add a Deion Smith, you add a Juice Wells to an already Trey Harris, who might be the best wide receiver in the Southeastern Conference. It's a situation to where if Trey Harris did not get hurt and miss a quarter of the season, he might put up 1,400 yards, which would have, he potentially could have been a first-round pick. So the players coming back, Jaden Kennedy coming back, who last season had a little bit of a knee problem to get through. It was going to be about a year process to get back. We've heard rumors of Ole Miss signing players in the transfer portal, knowing they're not going to be able to compete this year, to have them for next season. The rumors about Logan Diggs and his injury in the bowl game, that people talk about that all the time as well. So it'll be really interesting to see. I am completely fired up. You've seen my video. This is Ole Miss Hype Week. This has been Ole Miss Football Hype Week, and there will be another video tomorrow that is completely hype related. And this is why. This is why these players coming back, these players that are coming in, it's impressive. Now, I get that Jaxson Dart, who is kind of the ringleader on this, and him and Trey Harris, that is the reason they're calling this the last dance, is because this is their last run. I don't know how I feel about Lane Kiffin getting on those trains, but we'll see exactly how that goes. I'm expecting Lane to be here for quite a long time. I'm expecting the football team not so much to be a program like it has been in the past. They're even calling it team number so-and-so. It's not a program so much anymore. So next year's team, they will replace, they will do what they need to do. There might be some up and down that happens, but you're never going to bottom out, I don't think, under Lane Kiffin. I think you'll have a situation like 2021 into 2022. That is what bottoming out will look like for this Ole Miss football program. But everybody should get fired up. These visitors coming into campus, they're actually major pieces. If you want to go to the level that you want to go to, they all have a role. They all have a real role on this team potentially. And we'll see exactly how that goes. I'm also excited to see Brandon Turnage come back, because as somebody that saw what happened, I guess that was in 2019 or something like that, where he went to Alabama and all the Justin Woodall and stuff. It's glad to know that you can come home a little bit, and we'll see exactly how that goes with him. So let's see. Join the Discord server, by the way. The link is in the description. And, they have subscription options and all that at the Discord. We are integrating that with the YouTube channel as we speak, to where basically videos automatically post on there. It's a nice community where Ole Miss fans can hang out with other Ole Miss fans, or specifically everydayers can hang out with other everydayers. We just talk ball back and forth and have a good time doing it. We are not, since it's not a pay site, and money is not the most important thing, we have a pretty quick temper and rules that have to be followed. And if you don't do that, you will get booted out pretty quick. So trolls haven't really been a problem. We're pretty quick to deal with them. So hop on over the Discord, talk some Ole Miss football with us. We'll enjoy it. I'm on there quite a bit, and all the videos from Locked On Ole Miss get automatically posted there as well. Should be pretty fun. I'm excited about what's going on and what Ole Miss is looking at this season. Thanks for making the Locked On Ole Miss podcast your first listen. Every dayers, we continue to turn our attention to the portal, and we'll see how many commitments they are able to bring in this weekend and who else might be coming in as well. For your second listen, Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with the local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows that cover every single league. For your second listen, go to Locked On Sports Today on YouTube and subscribe to the first ever national sports 24/7 stream channel. For those of you on YouTube, we'll send you there right now. Hotty toddy.